Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your stack of sources, the historical data, the really dense narratives, and the surprising anecdotes, and we try to distill them into knowledge you can actually use.
And today we're exploring a theme that is, well, it's profoundly human.
But it's often executed with this just inhuman coldness. We're talking about extreme historical retribution.
Our mission today is to look way beyond the heat of the moment. We're diving into four really specific historical acts of vengeance. They span, almost 1,000 years, cross entire continents.
And what's wild is that a single chilling thread connects them all.
Exactly. The most brutal, the most effective acts of revenge, they are never impulsive. They are the result of this intense commitment, meticulous resource allocation, and I think this is the key, just astonishing patience.
That's the core finding, isn't it? The impulse might be pure fury, but the execution is, it's pure dark strategy. We're going to be tracking the mindset of the Avenger, how they used expectation, how they used deception, and just overwhelming force to make sure their victims didn't just meet a bad end.
No, it's more than that. It's about that agonizing realization that they had been deliberately, patiently led to their own doom.
So where do we begin?
We should begin where the historical fog is maybe the densest. It's a foundational story of strategic cruelty, the calculated fury of Olga of Kiev, a ruler whose patience was, it was as sharp as any sword.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 945 CE. We're in the early Rus kingdom. Prince Igor of Kiev, who was Olga's husband, he's traveled to collect tribute from the Drevlians.
Which is basically protection money, right?
Exactly, and they paid him. But Igor, just showing this incredible level of greed, immediately turns his small group around and demands more.
Yeah, a terrible idea. The Drevlians, who are this powerful, resentful tribe led by a guy named Prince Mal, they just decide enough is enough.
And Igor's death was, it was just utterly barbaric.
Our sources describe them tying his legs to two separate bent-over birch trees, and when they cut the ropes holding the trees down,
the trees snap back, tearing him completely in two. Horrific.
So Prince Mal, thinking he's being clever, sees an opportunity here. He immediately sends a delegation, 20 of his high-ranking ambassadors, to Kiev to propose marriage to the new widow, Olga.
The goal being to just absorb Kiev's lands and wealth. A classic power play.
A classic power play. And this is where the deception begins, because Mal completely misunderstands who he's dealing with. He expects a grieving, politically weak widow ready to be wooed.
But Olga greets them with this feigned warmth. She tells them she's honored and they should go rest by their boat.
And overnight, while they're sleeping, she has her men dig an enormous deep trench right in her courtyard. Think about the physical labor, the secrecy.
It's incredible. And the next morning, instead of leading them into the palace, her men carry the entire boat, with all 20 of them still in it,
At the land.
and dump them into the hole, burning them alive. That was Act 1.
Wow. And you might assume that news of something that horrific would, stop things right there. But the lure of uniting the territories was just too strong.
So Act 2, Olga sends her own messengers back to the Drevlian capital, Costan, and she says, I accept your proposal, but I need your most distinguished noblemen to escort me back in proper honor.
And the Drevlians, they still think the first group is fine, right? They're just preparing for a wedding, so they send their best and brightest.
When this new delegation arrives, Olga invites them to a bathhouse to relax and refresh themselves. She treats them like VIPs.
The second they're all inside, her men lock the doors and set the entire building on fire,
burning them all alive.
What's so key about these first two acts is how she weaponized their expectations. They thought they were getting a kingdom, they got certain death instead.
But she's not done. The body count isn't high enough. Act 3. Olga travels herself to Costan, the Drevlian capital.
Right, under the pretense of holding a grand mourning feast for Igor before the wedding.
She encourages the Drevlians to drink, to mourn with her. It's this classic wine and deception strategy.
And they get, as the sources say, properly hammered, believing this is all just a prelude to peace. Meanwhile, Olga's men had stayed completely sober the whole time.
Once the Drevlians were drunk and defenseless, she just gives the order. Her men slaughter thousands of them, including Prince Mal himself.
And then comes the finale, the final act.
Act 4. Olga returns with her army and besieges Costan for over a year. The people are starving. And finally, she sends a message. She'll lift the siege for a bizarrely small tribute.
3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every single house.
The Drevlians must have been so relieved. They think it's this weird, merciful end to their nightmare. So they gather up all the birds.
That night, Olga's men tie little bundles of sulfur-soaked cloth to the birds' legs. They light them and they release them.
And the birds, of course, instinctively fly straight back to their nests. Nests in the wooden roofs and the eaves of the houses all over the city.
Within hours, the entire capital is on fire, destroyed not by an army but by its own pets. That is calculated terror.
The Drevlians underestimated her capacity for strategic violence 4 separate times. She never met them on their terms.
No, she always used their own greed, their pride, and their expectations against them. That sustained, multi-stage treachery is what makes her story so unique.
It just completely flips the script on what revenge usually looks like.
Right.
Okay, so moving from the geopolitical games of ancient Rus to the stunning, almost absurd arrogance of a future Roman emperor. Let's talk about Julius Caesar.
This is a great shift because, unlike Olga's carefully masked vulnerability, Caesar used pure, unadulterated confidence as his weapon.
Okay, so the year 75 BCE. A 25-year-old Roman nobleman, Julius Caesar, is sailing near Rhodes and gets captured by Sicilian pirates.
They set a ransom of 20 talents. And for you listening, a Roman talent was a unit of mass, usually silver or gold. 20 talents is roughly $2 million today.
So they demand $2 million. And Caesar was insulted.
He was insulted by the low price. He demanded they raise the ransom to 50 talents.
That is unbelievable.
He felt 20 talents just completely undervalued him. It wasn't just ego, though. It was a power move, forcing his captors to recognize his monumental value.
And for the 38 days he was their prisoner, he refused to act like one. Our sources say he just walked around freely, told the pirates to be quiet when they were too noisy.
He played games with them, exercised, and my favorite part, he forced them to listen to his speeches and poems.
And he called them fools and barbarians when they didn't appreciate his work enough.
The pirates just sort of put up with this strange, charismatic prisoner because, hey, he represented 50 talents, $5 million. They completely misread him.
They mistook his confidence for, like, theatrical buffoonery.
And the whole time, he was constantly joking, but he was clearly serious. That once they let him go, he would come back, raise an army, and crucify every single one of them.
He delivered it like a promise with a smile.
And that's the psychological trap. Because he acted like their guest, not their victim, the pirates just discounted the threat. They thought it was just captive banter.
So they take the money, they release him.
And he immediately goes to the provincial governor, raises a small navy, sails right back to the island, captures every single pirate, and of course takes back the 50 talents.
And he kept his promise of crucifixion.
Yep.
But because he'd spent 38 days with them, he said he'd grown fond of them.
Yes. That's the chilling part. So he fulfilled the legal requirement crucifixion, but he offered this final dark gesture of mercy.
He had their throats slit first.
To prevent the prolonged, agonizing death on the cross. It was this pragmatic act of kindness that just underlined his supreme control over their lives and their deaths.
So the strategic takeaway is that Caesar used his own arrogance as a form of deception.
Exactly. The pirates thought they had the power. By acting like the threat was a joke, he made sure his victims were completely disarmed until the very moment the promise was fulfilled. It's the ultimate psychological reversal.
Okay, so we're going to jump forward now, 1,700 years? From that individual, ego-driven vendetta to a collective, patient act of honor. The story of the 47 Ronin.
And this one is a monument to shared strategic commitment. It takes us to Edo, Japan, in 1701.
We have Lord Asano, a regional noble, who is deeply insulted by a shogun official named Kira, apparently over inadequate gifts.
And in a moment of fury, Asano loses control and pulls his weapon inside Edo Castle, a huge taboo. He slashes Kira's face before he stopped.
Drawing a weapon in a castle was a capital crime. Asano was immediately ordered to commit seppuku ritual suicide to restore his honor.
His lands were seized, and his men were left masterless. They became Ronin.
And Kira, he got off with almost no punishment, just a scar.
Now, Kira knew Asano's men were fiercely loyal and would probably seek revenge. But their leader, a man named Oishi, executed the ultimate long game. For 2 full years, the Ronin just scattered. They took up jobs as carpenters, merchants.
And Oishi's performance was the key to the whole deception. He publicly abandoned the warrior code. He became a miserable, heavy-drinking drunkard.
Frequented brothels, divorced his wife. All of these were documented actions designed to be seen by Kira's spies. He systematically dismantled his own reputation.
All to make Kira believe the threat was gone. And it worked. Kira's security detail slowly wound down. He was convinced the Ronin were too demoralized to act.
Think about that. The 2-year strategic cost. Oishi's sacrificing his entire personal life and honor just to maintain operational security for a single night.
So on January 31st, 1703, 47 Ronin silently gather. They surround Kira's house. They'd meticulously scouted it.
They even went so far as to inform the neighbors, who mostly hated Kira anyway, that they were only seeking justice for their master. They basically ensured no one would interfere.
Oishi beats a drum and the assault begins. They overwhelm 38 guards, but Kira's missing.
They check his bed. It's still warm. They eventually find him hiding in a secret storehouse behind a scroll in the courtyard.
Once they have him, they identify him by the scar Asano had left 2 years earlier. And Oishi, in a final act of honor, offers Kira the chance to commit seppuku himself.
With the very same dagger Asano had used.
But Kira refused, trembling. He had no honor left, so Oishi beheaded him.
The commitment was complete. They then carried Kira's head 6 miles to their master's tomb. Huge crowds cheered them on for upholding the code of Bushido.
And knowing the law, they immediately surrendered to the authorities. But because their actions were seen as an honorable defense of their master's legacy, the shogun allowed them the honorable death of seppuku rather than just executing them like common criminals.
It cost them their lives, but their patient 2-year strategy ensured their honor was restored in the end.
The level of collective patience, the sacrifice required to maintain that deception for over 700 days is just almost unthinkable.
It really is, and if the 47 Ronin represent the peak of that kind of personalized, loyal revenge, our final story is just. It's the ultimate in geopolitical world-ending retribution. Genghis Khan and the annihilation of the Khwarezmian Empire.
All right, so we shift now to 1218. Genghis Khan is building his massive empire, and critically, he wants to open up trade routes to the west. He sends this huge caravan, 450 merchants and traders, to the Khwarezmian city of Otrar.
And the governor of Otrar, a man named Inalchuk, he just sees an opportunity for personal gain. He executes all 450 merchants and steals all their goods. A single camel driver escapes and gets the news back to Khan.
And Khan, surprisingly, shows some restraint at first. He sends a small delegation to Shah Muhammad, the ruler of the whole Khwarezmian Empire, and he only asks for Inalchuk to be handed over for punishment. He just wants justice.
Shah Muhammad's response was a diplomatic catastrophe. He killed the Muslim diplomat in the group, an act of war, and then, as the ultimate cultural insult, he shaved the beards of the 2 Mongolian diplomats before sending them back.
And for the Mongols, the beard was a sacred symbol of a man's honor. This wasn't just violence, it was public humiliation.
That insult guaranteed annihilation. Khan responded by raising an army of 200,000 men. This was not a punitive raid. This was the largest mobilization of forces the world had ever seen, purely for vengeance.
The scale of retribution was immediate and total. Khan used all the resources he'd amassed, all the new technologies he'd acquired, like sophisticated Chinese siege weapons, to just systematically crush them.
When Khan arrived at the great city of Bukhara, he rode in and proclaimed that he was sent by God to punish them for their sins. He ordered a massive slaughter.
And he was strategic about it. He only spared the artisans and craftsmen to be taken as slaves, and young men to be used as human shields in the next battle.
The city of Otrar, where it all started, was besieged for 5 months until Inalchuk was finally captured. And the stories of his punishment, well, the most gruesome one, says that because his greed started the conflict, Khan had molten silver poured into his eyes and ears.
This wasn't just punishment, it was total geopolitical destruction. Khan's forces destroyed every major city. They turned fertile lands into wastelands. They effectively erased the Khwarezmian Empire from the map.
And Shah Muhammad spent the rest of his life on the run until he died alone of pneumonia on some forgotten island.